Okay, let's continue with the chronology with the Spanish War book. We were in the chronology, the date of 1898, January 1st. Limited political autonomy under Spanish rule instituted in Cuba. January 12, Spanish militias led by army officers riot in Havana against autonomy policy. January 25, the USS Maine arrives at Havana ostensibly on friendly visit. February 9, personal letter by Spanish ambassador critical of McKinley is published in American newspapers. Spanish ambassador resigns. In February 15, USS Maine destroyed by explosion in Havana Harbor. And 268 American lives. 268 American lives lost. Havana Harbor, 268 American lives lost. March 17, Senator Redfield Proctor of Vermont reports to Senate on conditions in Cuba pro-war. Feeling spreads to American business community. March 28, finding of Naval Court of Inquiry that Maine destroyed by submerged mine given to Congress, pro-war feeling grows. April 11, President McKinley asked Congress for authority to use American military force to end Spanish rule in Cuba. In April 22, U.S. North Atlantic Squadron blockades Cuba. State of war exists. In April 2022, U.S. North Atlantic Squadron blockades Cuba. State of war exists between the United States and Spain. 1898. In 1898, in May 1st, U.S. Asiatic Squadron under Commodore Dewey attacks and destroys a Spanish fleet in Manila Bay and blockades Manila. In 1898, May 11, first American combat facilities in naval actions at Cuban ports of Cardenas and Cienfuegos. In 1898, May 15, Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt arrives in San Antonio, Texas to train with the Rough Riders. In 1898, May 28, the Spanish squadron under Admiral Cervera blockaded in harbor of Santiago de Cuba by U.S. Flying Squadron. In 1898, June 22, 16,000 American troops began to land on Cuban coast for advance on Santiago de Cuba. In 1898, June 24, Roosevelt and Rough Riders encounter Spanish troops at Battle of Las Guasimas. In 1898, July 1st, major American advance on Santiago de Cuba, battles of San Juan 8 and El Caney. Roosevelt leads charge up Kittle Hill. In 1898, July 3, Spanish squadron under Admiral Cervera attempts to run American blockade, all Spanish ships destroyed. In 1898, July 17, Spanish surrender Santiago de Cuba. In 1898, July 25, American invasion of Puerto Rico begins. In 1898, August 12, Spanish and American officials signed peace protocol to end fighting. In 1898, August 13, Commodore Dewey and General Wesley married, unaware of peace protocol, attacked Manila. In Spanish surrender Philippines. In 1898, November 8, Spanish war hero Theodore Roosevelt elected governor of New York State. In 1898, December 10, Treaty of Paris officially ends Spanish War. Spanish agrees to cede Puerto Rico and Guam to the United States, to sell the Philippines to the United States for $20 million, and to grant independence to Cuba. In 1899, February 4, fighting erupts between Filipinos and U.S. occupation forces. The Philippine War begins. In 1901, March 4, President McKinley inaugurates for second term. His new vice president is former New York Governor Theodore Roosevelt. In 1901, March 23, Filipino revolutionary leader Emilio Aguinaldo captured by U.S. forces. In September 14, President McKinley dies from gunshot. And 1901, September 14, President McKinley dies from gunshot wounds sustained in attack by anarchists on September 6. Theodore Roosevelt sworn in as president. In 1902, July 4, President Roosevelt proclaims Philippine War ended. Okay, the chronology is finished. I have a little more time to read. Inspired. Introduction. Could we regard the Spanish War as calmly as if it were a thing? This is the page 17. Okay. Could we regard the Spanish War as calmly as if it were a thing of the past? We should doubtless perceive that it formed a link in a long chain of events which, when complete, would represent one of those memorable revolutions wherein civilization passed from an old to a new condition of equilibrium. The last such revolution ended with Waterloo. The one now at and promises to be equally momentous. Brooke Adams, 1898. For 113 days during the spring and summer of 1898, the United States was at war with Spain. Neither the President of the United States nor his cabinet nor the Queen Regent of Spain nor ministers wanted the war. It happened despite their best efforts to prevent it. It happened because forces set in motion decades before had become too powerful to resist. It happened because of an ambition, miscalculation, and stupidity And it happened because of kindness, wit, and resourcefulness. It happened because some were indifferent to the suffering of the world, wretched, and others were not. And it happened because history is sometimes the playing of chance. For Spain, it was the bottom of the centuries-long slide from imperial power. For the United States, it was metamorphosis. The shell of isolation was broken, and a new American dominion suddenly stretched from the Caribbean to the Far East. It was the most popular of all our wars. Never before or since has a grassroots America been too ready to fight. God seemed to have taken our side, for despite some monumental military blunders, we never lost a battle on land or sea. When it was over, recounted the cost. Killed in action 369 soldiers, 10 sailors, 6 marines, some 2,000 more died from disease, bad food, and other causes. As wars go, this was a cheap one. It was been a splendid little war, wrote the American ambassador in London. Began with the highest motives, carried on with magnificent intelligence and spirit, favored by the fortune which loves the brave. It was more. It was national right, the passage transforming a former colony into a world power. Almost unconsciously, the United States have taken the road that Pearl Harbor, the Bay of Pigs, and Vietnam has been made inevitable. The 20th century was waiting in the wings. This is how it happened. Page 19. Chapter 1. This mean war. On February 15 in 1898, a heavy rain had been falling on Key West for several hours. Tom Warren stood at the second floor window of the International Ocean Telegraph Company's office and looked down at Green Street, wet and empty. He glanced at the clock. 9 p.m. It had been a quiet evening. The telegraph sounder on his desk began to clatter. He sat down and transcribed the incoming message. To burn in the Herald, New York City,